Jimbo's Garage.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Jimbo's Garage. Well, this is just another handrail. You know, it just seems like it's been the month for the handrails right here. Although they all seem the same, there's no two handrails alike. They're all different in some way, shape, or form. And this is the fourth part of a handrail project that I'm working on. And, you know, I can't film everything that comes into the shop as much as I'd like to, but I just can't for all practical purposes. But I do the best I can. So I'm gonna bring you along on this project right here. We're going to talk about a few things, answer a few questions that some guys have dropped in the comments section, and you know, hopefully we can see a little bit of fabrication here along the way. I'm starting off right here on this particular material that I'm using, and this is heavily coated with oil, so I wipe everything down with acetone. If I didn't, my hands would be black, or at least blacker than they already are working on this, so I like to clean things up prior to getting started. Now you see me using my corner vise right here, and that's what I use to make my corners at the 90-degree angle. But that is about to change, I think. I'm exploring some new corner clamping material, you might say, and here in the near future, I might be using some different devices for that. But until then, this is what I'm going to be using, and it works pretty good. You know, like usual, I start by, you know, when I have this corner vise like this, you know, it clamps it super tight, super square. So in this situation, you know, tacking it is not, you know, really necessary. It's not going to move around. So a lot of times I just clamp this thing in the situation, or clamp it in to what I'm doing right here, and it locks it right in. I go ahead and just weld it out. You might see in the background there the welding cart. You know what? I've been getting a lot of people asking questions about that. How do you like it? You change some things on it. Can you give us a tour of the machines and stuff on there? And I will be doing that here in an upcoming video. But to answer the basic questions, the cart's working perfectly for what I need it for. The accessibility for all the machines that I have is perfect. I have 15-foot gun leads on everything, and so I'm able to get all the way across my welding table all the way around without any problems, unless I'm working on sections like this right here that is about 18 feet long. Well, obviously I can't get all the way to the end of my workbench right here, so I would just flip this thing around and be able to catch the other side there. But this is the beauty about having my welding table at the same elevation as my workbench, just for this reason right here. You know, it's not very often that I get pieces that are in excess of 10 feet, but when I do, this is what makes it handy when you have everything at the same elevation. You know, I get a lot of people ask me, how do you move these bigger parts around? You know, do you have some kind of gantry or crane or forklift? No, the answer is no, I don't. At least I don't yet. You just learn to maneuver things when you work by yourself, and sometimes when things get a little bit heavier than I can handle, I wait for my guys to come back to the shop, or you know, I call my buddy next door. He comes over and gives me a hand. Again, you can just see I've got everything nice and level, and that's what we want to do when we start installing the pickets here. Now this is my fine cutoff saw, the Slugger. I get a lot of people ask me what type of saw it is, what type of blade you're using. This is also a fine mild steel blade. It works perfect for me. I've had no issues with the saw or the blade itself. However, I recently bound a piece of material in the saw and bent the arbor, and I'm going to have to see about getting that fixed or getting my saw replaced at some point in time. I also get a lot of people ask me about how I space the pickets in there. How do you know where to start? How do you know where to finish on something like this? And this is how I do it. I generally start with 4 inches. You know, code that is code here in California. It may not be in where you're from, but the spacing needs to be 4 inches or less. So that's what I start with, and as I go along, I just go with that. When I get to you know, right near the end, which you'll see in a little bit, I start double checking the spacing, and you may want to right at about this point right here is where I start checking to see how things are going to line up as I finish up, and that's, you can see what's going on right here. Because the last thing you want to do is have a spacing of 4 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches, and you get down to the end, you've got a 1 inch or a 2 inch piece that goes in there, and that's not really ideal. And this is what I'm doing right here. You can see I'm checking, is it going to work out? Is it going to work out? No, I'm going to turn them sideways here at the end of this run. Not all runs are the same. They're all different lengths, and so you might have to space things out a little bit differently. Whatever works at the end of the run to make them look like they're somewhat equal. In all reality, when you stand this thing up and you look at it from afar, it's really difficult to see that change. So that, hopefully that answers some of the questions on that part. And it's just all about productivity here. I learn how to make things go faster and easier as I go along, cutting things out, getting everything to fit right in there. An important thing that I've learned too is when I'm putting these pickets in right here is I cut them about 1/8 of an inch short for sure, because just nothing worse than trying to wedge these things in and wedge them in. It seems to go a lot faster for me than just setting them in and spacing them. You can also see that I've got another spacer underneath. Now that's going to get me the adjustment to be sure that the pickets are in the middle of the top and bottom rail. This varies too. This happens to be a 2 inch square tube post with 1.5 inch square tube rail, 5/8 pickets on this particular project. So everything is different. This is why I hang on to all these little pieces of wood remnants you may see, all different sizes, to make little adjustments like this. This is just all little tricks of the trade that you learn as you go along. This is what makes projects like this go a lot faster and easier. Another thing is too, is you might see me with that square, that speed square, just double checking squareness as you go along too. That's really important. You might see that wood table or bench in the background there. You know what? My daughter Jenna and my producer Dane are getting married later on this fall, and of course it's going to be up to me to make 14 of those tables. So that was the prototype, and that's what they're going to be looking like. It's an old barn style table, so that is what that's all about there in the back. So once I got the pickets all tacked into place where they're going to be, then it's just a matter of just welding these things out. And this is why I try not to take projects too much longer than 20 feet. It gets boring, it gets monotonous, at least for me, and I like to be able to keep things interesting. So this is about the limit of the projects that I like to take on in the shop. So these are the tabs. I'm just welding these tabs on now. This is not my design. This is the homeowner's design. He wanted this railing to be mounted to the outside surface of this raised concrete block deck. That's what this is going on. If it were me, I would have not done it this way. But you know what? I do what the homeowner wants and build it the way they want. And at the end of the day, it makes they were happy anyway. It wouldn't have been my choice, but this is the way we're doing this one. You might see me just welding these things on, and then right away I'm taking my grinder and welding those welds flat. That is because this is the side that's going to be going up against the concrete block surface, and we want it to be nice and flat. Now there was about 1/8 of an inch gap between the tab and the post itself, so I did get some penetration in there. And then later on, you'll see me, I'll be flipping this over and I'll be running a weld on the other side, and that's going to help make it, give it that added strength that we're going to need. I use these little mag squares to hold these tabs in place. I've got several sizes and several of them, and works out really good for that extra hand to just hold everything nice and flat and square. And those are pretty cool. Like I said, several sizes from small to large. They work out really good. I got a lot of people also ask me, what kind of grinder am I using? This is my Walter Surface Technology grinder. I have several of these. My go-to one is the Mini and the Mini PS. I just recently had a customer ask me, or a viewer asked me, how many amps does that grinder have? Well, on the Mini and the Mini PS, there's 8.5 amps. I've never had any issues with it. Those things work perfectly fine. I like them because they're small and easy to maneuver. I also have the larger ones. I use those on bigger scale projects. We're getting right here towards the end, and I'm welding these cast iron decorative caps on the end of the 2-inch square tube columns right here. And you know, cast iron is sometimes a little bit difficult to weld to mild steel, just the way it is. And you can see right here, sometimes I forget to cut the end of my wire off, and all it takes is just a bang, and it pushes that wire through. That happens every once in a while. No problems there. Like I was saying, welding cast iron to mild steel could be a bit of a challenge. I don't know how structurally strong it is. It doesn't need to be in this case right here. These are just decorative pieces, and I'm just putting a weld on either side about 1 inch long, and that is all you really need to hold this in place. It's not going to be coming off at all. And then here I am, I flipped this thing over, and this is where I'm just finishing up these tabs, and I'm getting the weld on the back side of these tabs. This is not going to be an issue. This is going to be facing forward, so this is what's going to give it that added strength, and just finishing up the welds on the caps on the very bottom right there. Grinding everything flat, and this project is almost complete. Well, that'll do it for this video right here. I got all the pieces complete and welded out, and I hope that answered some questions that some of you guys may have had. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and check out my website at Jimbo's Garage. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more videos.
See you next time on Jimbo's Garage.